is 9:01 on August 5th, 2020. If you would please rise, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't see it on here. Usually you give a report, none.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Instead, I'd like to give about a 3-minute report on COVID-19 updates, and I could make it, it's very important that I could make it fairly quick. Back to Douglas County, I remember just a couple months ago, they had cases that they were holding in the 20s, and there's quite an increase throughout Oregon. And this is just a plea to the citizens to understand where we are on this. There's a term that we should all be, if you don't mind me reading, just got this yesterday. There is a term we should all be familiar with, COVID risk. Well, everyone should be familiar with COVID. This super infectious pandemic virus that is sweeping our world. Some of you are not familiar with that term, COVID risk. And you should be. Webster defines risk as to expose to a hazard or danger. COVID risk refers to the levels of potential exposure of contracting or spreading the COVID-19 virus as related to your activities. Low-risk activities are those that expose you to a minimal risk of getting COVID, while high-risk activities are those that most certainly could expose you, your family, and your community to the virus. With that said, we wanted to specifically address the relationship between why our cases are on the rise in Douglas County and in Oregon, and the fact that people not heeding our advice about traveling, attending social gatherings, and staying home when they are sick. Thank you for this time, Mr. Chair. Facts about COVID risk in Douglas County. It can be relevant to anywhere in Oregon, almost anywhere in Oregon. We continue to see people test positive for COVID-19 that have traveled out of the area, especially out of the state. We continue to see people that have contracted the virus infect others, well before they show any actual symptoms. We continue to see people welcome visitors from out of state into their homes that have brought the virus with them. My wife made my grandkids wear masks in the house yesterday. We continue to see people that have been tested for COVID awaiting results, not isolating themselves. We continue to see people making questionable judgment calls that have resulted in the increase of COVID cases. We continue to remind our residents to limit travel, not attend social gatherings, and stay home if they are sick. If you don't think the coronavirus can spread like wildfire, here is a case in point. A recent outbreak in our county spiraled out of control in a matter of days. This outbreak is riddled with choices that allow the virus to spread. A family member decided to travel from another state with a high level of COVID cases to Douglas County, simply to visit family. There was not an emergency or a life event. The visitor did not self-quarantine for 14 days prior to the visit. Either at home or during their journey, the visitor unknowingly contracted the coronavirus. While here, the out-of-state visitor unknowingly exposed and infected several in their host family with COVID. One member of that family then attended a large social event with 60-plus people. I can conclude there, except for citizens, please hear. The captions have a lot of details, and following Douglas County has proved to be very helpful to me in understanding as this thing changes, this public health emergency, this public health issue changes just every day. 6 main headings here, excuse me. Evaluate the risk before you travel. Limit who you see or visit. Ask your family and friends to stay home. Don't attend that social gathering. Stay home if you are sick. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would like to remember 8 Marines and 1 naval personnel that gave their lives last week in San Diego on a downing of a Marine vehicle used in offshore water maneuvers. from my understanding last night, bodies were recovered, and they are all lost. That's fine. Do we have any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'm sorry, I was waiting for Commissioner Gold. I do. Mr. Chair, if I may.
Sure.
I'd like to add two items. One, both are for discussion, so these will not be action items. One is on the Boyce County Park, public safety and overcrowding issues. I would recommend that be 5H. And also, Mr. Chair, I would like to add to the agenda, likewise for discussion purposes only. Where's my notes? Boyce Cove. Oh, on the FEMA advisory, non-congregate housing matter. My apologies, Mr. Chair.
The FEMA what?
It's a grant for non-congregate housing that the counties can apply for.
Okay.
So far, 10 counties within Oregon have qualified, and I think we need a discussion on that. And that's the person that's calling in, Mr. Chair, at 9:15.
They're calling in here at 9:15?
Give or take. I tried to estimate the time. So should we move that forward then?
Well, if it gets added to the agenda, you can still tell that person to call back later. You have some flexibility.
And she would be willing to do that.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to do that because we've got some other things that,
They're going to take some time.
yeah, this is going to be some time. So I'm okay with adding them to the agenda, absolutely. But yeah, I think we're going to need to ask that person to call back later. Or maybe we could have someone from our staff call her a few minutes before we're going to be ready for her. Just tell them somebody from our staff will contact them a few minutes before we're ready and give them time to call in. Is that what you had for changes?
That's all.
Commissioner Gold, any?
No.
All right, so do I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
I have a second. Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Yes.
Chair Pash?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, next we're going to move on to public comments. As you can see, we have a large group today. I'm going to ask you to be very specific on your comments and keep them to the 3 minutes, as well as if you hear someone in front of you that's saying the same thing, please understand that we are a little bit crunched for time. I would like to hear everyone. Just repetition is, I would appreciate all you can do to minimize that. First, we have Ms. Rowe on library districts. Sure. Rowe, Ms. Rowe.
Chair Pash, I submitted two public comment slips. Did you see that one?
Yes, I did.
For the consumption tax as well.
Yes.
So may I give the one on the consumption tax first?
You can, yes, if you would. If you'd like to do them both now, that'd be all right.
Thank you. Okay. That's not my phone, but it reminds me I better make sure mine isn't going to ring either. Okay. I'm Mary Rowe. Putting this consumption tax on the November ballot is an irresponsible waste of the taxpayers' money, as it will not pass, nor should it. By the way, the county government paid about $4,000 as its share of the May 2020 ballot and will likely pay more for the November ballot. Thanks Shelley Doyle for that information. First, the ballot measure seems hastily thrown together. For instance, it does not state how Curry County residents would identify themselves as such. Would we use our ID, or would another form of proof be required, which could cost the county money to produce and distribute? And if we have to use our IDs to purchase essentials, would that violate our constitutional right to privacy? How much would it cost to create the structure to monitor and enforce this tax? In May 2019, when we had a consumption tax advisory question on our ballot, it was suggested that the tax be between 1.5 and 2%. This is 3%. I believe that this is too high and we would lose many of the shoppers who come here every month from neighboring California counties. I would like to see essential items like food and diapers not included. The COVID virus is mentioned as a justification for having the tax to feed and protect our residents. Based on this board's recent actions, prioritizing the needs of businesses and supporting tourism during this time of the virus, I am inclined to believe that this is an excuse given in order to mislead voters. This consumption tax would be a hardship to our businesses, which would have to provide oversight and have their lines of customers slowed down while IDs are checked and then explained to the tourists, and they would be subject to penalties for noncompliance. Other counties could and probably would follow suit with similar taxes, placing us at a disadvantage as we have to shop in other counties for items that we cannot get there, and thus could have to pay more taxes in bigger counties than their residents would pay to us. This measure would also hurt the homeless. Please do not put this on the November ballot, but rather continue to work on it. Thank you. Okay, that's my first comment. Second one on the libraries. In the July 29th Curry County Reporter, there was a press release from DOC Julie Schmilzer's office with quotations from Chair Pash asking for a dialogue between citizens and himself regarding the special tax districts. Yet, 2 days later, the proposed ballot measures about special districts were put on this agenda by Pash. When was this dialogue supposed to occur? And what happened to the Citizens Revenue Task Force, which was not on the county website? The deadline to put tax measures on the November ballot is August 15th. By focusing on two issues that are the state's responsibility, the parking of RVs along the highway and the lack of coverage at Loeb State Park's day use area, this board failed to follow up on the possibility of having a Citizens Revenue Task Force or the dialogue called for by Pash before putting ballot measures for the November ballot on today's agenda. As our county government is running on fumes, this lack of appropriate prioritization is dangerous to our county's survival. I am concerned about the library district's ballot measure, which would consolidate the library districts into one district with shared resources. Chetco Community Library serves South County with at least half of our citizens. The structure of this library is different than the other libraries. It is a hybrid of the city of Brookings and other areas. Chair Pash said in the press release that, quote, a simple Google search on any topic puts thousands of articles, videos, and live lessons on that topic at your fingertips, which he uses as justification to diminish our libraries. Many folks, including myself, cannot use computers or smartphones, and the library serves many more functions than those mentioned by Pash, which are necessary for the healthy functioning of our community and even to the survival of some people. This ballot measure is too extreme, inadequately thought out, and would not pass. Please rework it for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hidalgo? Morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair, and staff, and general population. I'm Beth Barker Hidalgo, and I'm here today as a member of the Curry County Suicide Awareness and Prevention Council. I represent the Substance Use Disorder Work Group. I don't know if you're aware, but August is Overdose Awareness Month, so we're here to raise awareness around substance use disorder and how that relates to Curry County. There were over 47,000 suicides in 2017 in the United States. Of the 47,000 deaths by suicide, 20% were found to have opioids in their system. And then 22% of deaths by suicide are found to have alcohol intoxicants in their system. Suicide is now the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. And to bring it to a local level, Curry County ranked 6th in suicides amongst ages 10 to 24 in the year of 2016. So that kind of brings us to the intersection of suicide and substance use disorder. individuals with substance use disorder are particularly susceptible to suicide and suicide attempts. In fact, suicide is leading cause of death among people who misuse alcohol and drugs, and this is according to SAMHSA, 2008, HHS 2012, and some other studies that have been done. Substance use misuse significantly increases the risk of suicide. Curry data. Oregon Health Authority maintains a opioid dashboard, and it's showing that over the last 5 years, Curry County has experienced 22 overdose deaths according to Vital Records reporting. That doesn't seem like very much over a 5-year period, but when we bring it down again to the personal level, it's such a huge impact on our community as a whole that one death reverberates throughout our community. So, and I suspect that there are more than the 22 over the past 5 years that have been reported, and the reason I say that is because when we go to the dashboard, there are a lot of subsets of data that we can't get for Curry. It's either underreported because of our low population, or it's not following the chain up all the way to Oregon Health Authority, back up to the system to be populated. And I know this because I've spoken with a representative at Oregon Health Authority, the innovator agent, Bevan Hansel, for the All Care Community Advisory Council. There's a few things going on here, and she's digging deep into why we're not getting our data for Curry County. But let me wrap up. We have, according to our community health assessment done in 2018, we have excessive heavy alcohol consumption and binge drinking contributing to chronic health issues, including heart disease, cirrhosis of the liver, high blood pressure, stroke, and even death. And we lack medication-assisted treatment in Curry. I've tried over the past 2 months to get help for 2 of our clients that want medication-assisted treatment for alcoholism, and they can't get it here. So, thank you.
Mr. Gold had a question.
Can I ask you just one question regarding suicide? Is it true, I've heard this several places, that suicides have escalated since we've been hunkered
Absolutely.
down for COVID?
Unfortunately, I think, I'm reading similar articles and data coming out around part of that COVID risk is, and I'm sure Gordon can speak to that in more depth. In fact, I know he can because I've been on his website and there's a lot of information there about that subject.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll check it out.
Diana Cooper?
Hi. My name's Diana Cooper. I am a community health worker and an advocate at St. Timothy's Episcopal Church, and I was born and raised in Brookings. I don't have a lot of data, but I did want to bring some names forward. Cameron Schaff, I don't know who all here knows him, but he passed away. He took his own life. This month will be 13 years. Tawny Hoff, last May, took her own life at Checo Point. Mary and Mike Cooper, my in-laws, took their own life 14 years ago. And all of these could have been prevented with treatment, with housing, with substance use detox. And then myself and my husband, we grew up here in Brookings, and we had to leave Brookings in order to get treatment. And so when my in-laws took their life, all 4 of the children kind of descended into their own addiction. So my sister-in-law, Charmaine Cooper, she lost several of her children here to the system and was never able to get out of it until she left, and she's doing very well now. I left to get treatment, my husband and I did, 7 years ago. We were very successful. We were able to get on our feet. Unfortunately, a lot of the time when people leave to get that assistance, it takes them even longer, because we know that one of the most important pieces for people getting treatment is that support system. So when we left, we had no support system, and it took us over a year in order for us to come back around and gain support where we were to get out of it. And as it stands here, a lot of our folks don't have a support system. And a lot of our folks within the homeless community are each other's support system. And So we do have a lot of folks right now who are wanting to get off, wanting to get treatment, but they don't have anywhere here where they're able to get it. And I would like to see some type of either detox, inpatient, something where we can get folks in where they're supported and they don't have to leave, so that they can have their family and their friends and their support system here assist them. We know that that makes for long-term recovery. I'm standing here with 7 years, and I would have loved to have stayed in Medford for all the support and services, but it's just too hot. So I'm very happy to be back here, but I have to say it was quite a struggle to want to move back, because I know that there's not resources here. And I'm concerned for my children. You know, we do the best we can, but you never know. And I don't want my children to have to leave to get assistance. It's not necessary. We've had this conversation a lot, I think, in the area. And, oh, is that my time? We've had this conversation a lot in the area, and we do have the resources, and we do have the support. We now have the coalition. We have St. Timothy's. We have several different entities that are willing to step up, Orca. So I think that this is a conversation that we should stop having. We should start moving forward on.
Commissioner Gold?
I just have one question.
Sure.
You're talking about the lack of mental health services
I'm
here?
talking about the lack of substance use, like, I'm
Substance
talking,
abuse?
yes, I'm talking
All
about
kind of tied
substance
together
abuse.
with the
Sorry, I didn't
mental health.
specify that, but my in-laws, Cameron Schaff, Tani Hoff, they were all comorbidities, so there was substance use, there was mental illness, and so essentially that's what took them out.
So did you try Curry Community Health?
Absolutely. Tani
Okay.
Hoff was going to Curry Community Health. Cameron Schaff had been to Curry Community Health. This was a big issue, specifically regarding Tani. She was receiving services there, but they were so infrequent and so inconsistent that she was unable to get the assistance that she needed to get off.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you. Wonderful to get your emails, very insightful, to the point. Appreciate your bravery and the work you're doing around the community there. And
Thank you.
just a big shout out. We're glad to have you here from Medford.
Thank you,
Be
Commissioner
working with you
Boyce.
down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Skinner?
So I'm going to read a statement, half of it, Denise Williams is going to read the second half of this. This is regarding proposed advisory question about library district consolidation. The publicly elected board of directors of the Agnes Public Library, Chetco Community Library, Curry Public Library, Langlois Public Library, Port Orford Public Library have discussed this joint statement, requesting that the commissioners vote no on the proposal to refer an advisory question about library district consolidation to the November ballot. It is our conclusion that the proposed question misleads voters into thinking the county can legally make governance decisions for our 5 independently governed districts. This is not good for public confidence in county government or special districts. Furthermore, the proposed question does not meet the statutory requirements of being impartial, simple, and understandable. To the issue of impartiality, the advisory question as written is based on inaccurate information about libraries. We find no evidence to support the statement. With the advances in technology, many residents no longer need a physical library. Rather, many traditional library services are now available electronically from the convenience of one's home. On the contrary, the data the libraries have collected show that the libraries in Curry County are some of the most heavily used public facilities in the county. Overall per capita use has increased, not decreased, over the past 5 years. Connectivity for virtual communications and digital resources is not available or affordable for everyone in Curry County, and the libraries are the only free and accessible source for the public to access these critical resources. Additionally, the language of the advisory measure erroneously insinuates to voters that some libraries are failing to meet their goals and that consolidation will remedy this problem while potentially saving money. While the services provided by each library varies, This is by design to meet local needs. For example, there's not a youth population of pre-K children in Agnes, and as a result, they do not host pre-K programs. In cases where there have been local needs that exceeded a district's allocated budgets, the local communities in our districts have consistently stepped up to address the shortfall. This is one of the great strengths of local special district governance. Our constituents care deeply about our services because they are local and meaningful. In rare cases where needs have not been met locally, the 5 libraries have voluntarily worked together to seek grants and other solutions to ensure each library meets its community needs. We are unanimous in our pride in local control, local autonomy, collaboration, and our high level of achievement as a group of library districts. Thank you.
Ms. Williams? Good morning.
Good morning, and I'm going to read the second half. I'm Denise Williams, Port Orford Director. In terms of the benchmark of simplicity, this question fails by proposing district consolidation without providing a definition of consolidation for the voters. District consolidation is, in fact, a complex legal process outlined by state law. The question is further confused by the fact that consolidation would not change the total amount of revenue collected from taxpayers. This question does not explicitly state that taxpayers would save money, but it is insinuated and directly stated in Commissioner Pash's press releases and related agenda documents. For the sake of transparency to the voters, an advisory question should note that the permanent tax rate for consolidated districts must, by law, result in the same tax revenue as the individual districts would have collected. That would make the new tax rate an estimated 0.5023 per thousand across the board, redistributing the tax burden overwhelmingly, approximately $150,000 per year by this year's tax assessment, to the community of Brookings Harbor and the rest of the Chetco Library District. In reference to the statutory requirement that advisory questions be understandable, it must be noted that there is a glaring logical fallacy in the way this question is posed. If, as the question is stated, libraries and their facilities are irrelevant and no longer used, why would the county not ask voters if they are in favor of eliminating libraries? Instead, this question asks voters if they want to reorganize them. This does not meet the benchmark of being understandable. The language of this advisory question also fails in its impartiality and understandability by misleading voters and indicating that the vote will guide the libraries in their consolidation discussions. No such discussions have been initiated. Any such future discussions would be initiated by the library governance boards, and the libraries themselves will gather public input on the issue. In summary, this advisory question undermines public trust, inappropriately interferes with special district governance, and fails to meet the statutory benchmarks for an advisory question. We ask that in addition to voting no on this flawed advisory question, the Curry County Commissioners conclude this process of investigating the viability of libraries as part of the effort to free up money for county operations. The people in our districts elected us to act on their behalf in regards to their libraries. The evidence clearly shows we are needed by our communities. We are used by our communities. We are adeptly managed, and we are impacting the lives of our citizens and youth in profoundly positive ways. It is time for us to return to this work and stop wasting taxpayer time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rutherford?
Hi, Julie Rutherford, Chetco Library Director in Brookings.
Good morning.
Good morning. That was the letter. My comments are separate from that letter. These are my own on behalf of the Chetco Library. So over the past couple of weeks, Commissioner Pash has made his case for consolidating districts. And in the July 23rd press release and in the documents for this ballot measure, I agree that several untrue statements have been made about our libraries. Since I only have a few minutes, I'm going to focus on one or two of those since the letter's already addressed it and there's another document on the record that the directors put together. So in terms of the taxpayer cost savings that have been proposed, right now all 5 library districts in Curry County have different tax rates. Those range from Chetco at 0.4256 up to Langlois, which is 0.7707. When you consolidate the districts, the permanent tax rate in total must be the same as what the districts would have collected had they not consolidated. So whether we remain separate or consolidate, the permanent tax rate assessed will be the same. Consolidating just requires that everyone be on one new tax rate rather than 5 different ones. We determine that rate by using the Oregon Department of Revenue's consolidation tax rate calculator. And as was said, it'll be about 5023. So Chetco Library District's tax rate, which is currently 4256, would be raised. The largest percentage of taxpayers in the Curry Library Districts would receive a tax increase. And the second largest library system, Curry Public, would pay about $115,000 less. And in that, the proposed consolidation, with the goal being to even out the funding, that $150,000 of extra money that would be collected from the Chetco District taxpayers, plus additional funding that we already collect and use, should be distributed to the other libraries. So residents of my library district will pay significantly more while losing funding for their local library. I also want to add that if we consolidate, all 5 libraries throughout the county will be overseen by one board, and just according to population, that would be led majority by board members in the Brookings Harbor District. And so that destroys the very thing that works best about special districts, which is local oversight. And another statement included in the documents regarding consolidation states that many residents no longer need public libraries. Libraries in Curry County, as the board said, are loved and heavily used. The Chetco Library alone had 92,000 people walk through its doors last year. Almost 200,000 items checked out from our building alone, and over 40,000 public computer and free Wi-Fi uses. So you can't look at those numbers and honestly say that our residents no longer need a physical library. It's just not accurate. So while I appreciate the need to find new funding for the sheriff and county operations, consolidating library districts is not part of the answer. We bring immense value to our communities and a huge return on investment. And besides that, consolidating would not free up any money for the potential tax increases elsewhere. Continuing to operate as separate special district libraries is the most effective and efficient way for us to serve our separate communities. So I too ask that you vote no, and that in the future, the elected library boards are left to deal with this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rose?
Well, the 3 directors stated it much better than I ever could, so I will just let their words stand, and I support them. And please vote no for putting this on the ballot. It's a waste of your time and our money to put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes?
Last meeting, there was a lot of people in this room talking about the signs out on 101, the no overnight parking signs. And it was decided it's pretty much a non-issue, but Danny Padilla from State Parks said that she has a grant application that was preliminarily approved to put up 16 more of these signs. If you look at the paperwork that I just gave you, the first picture is a picture of one of the signs out at Rainbow Viewpoint in Brookings. Sign stands 10 or 12 feet tall. It's almost 10 square foot. If you look at the next picture, that shows the locations of those signs across the Rainbow Rock Viewpoint. There's 6 of them across a 900-foot viewpoint there. They block the view. The only way to get a picture or to see from there is to go on the other side of the guardrail, which endangers people. If you look at the third picture, there is already a sign that exists. It says Rainbow Rock Viewpoint. We can put a sign underneath those signs that say no overnight parking if we decide we're going to go ahead and go forward with this. And if we were to do this with the 2-sign approach to it, if you see on the 4th one that I put up, the signs would only be at the beginning and the end of the approaches to the rest areas. Instead of marring the view across the rest area, across the pullouts and rest areas, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, I'd really like to propose that we advocate for the 2-sign program. I've spoken to the city of Brookings about this. They are supportive and are having a meeting on it next Monday. The Gold Beach City Council, Councilor Mattson brought it up to them the other day, and they unanimously advocated her to work with ODOT and state parks and state police to implement the 2 signs instead of 6 signs. And I would like to get this board on board with the same type of thing. Today, I'd like to, if you can, request a letter to ODOT, OSP, and state parks saying, please don't do this. Please take this other approach to it. Give us back our view. It's one of the most beautiful and unique views in the world. It's one of the greatest assets of Curry County, and we have it marred with these signs. There's 20 of them between Myers Creek and Rainbow Rock, and I would just like to see them come down and replaced with something that's more in tune with the beautiful coastal view that you have. So I'll make my other comments now too if you want.
Sure.
On the consumption tax, in May of 2019, a consumption tax went before the voter, an advisory question went before the voters. It was voted down over 5-1, 4,800 to 900. No means no. The people have spoken on this already. Adding the words that, putting a COVID scare into it and adding the words for non-resident really doesn't change anything. The people have spoken. They don't want this tax, and I'd like you to listen to them. And then lastly, real quick on the fuel consumption tax, your paperwork is wrong because the city of Brookings already does have a fuel tax. It's 4 cents a gallon. They made $300,000 off of it last year. If you extrapolate out and do all the math and everything else, the fuel tax is going to bring approximately, after all expenses, maybe $100,000 into Curry County. I've done the math. You know me, I can do stuff like that. So it'll bring in about $100,000, and I really question whether even the process is going to be worth it. You're going to need more people and everything else. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Gordon Clay. Good morning.
Good morning. The semicolon. I almost died by suicide, and semicolon, my story's not over. For the record, my name is Gordon Clay from Brookings, Chair of the Suicide Awareness and Prevention Council in Curry County. I'm bringing you continuing information on how pervasive suicide is in its many different forms. This month is Overdose Awareness Month. We are becoming more informed about the link between overdoses and suicide. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, accidental drug overdoses, deaths, and suicide have increased at an extreme rate. Suspected overdoses nationally jumped 18% in March of this year, 29% in April, and 42% in May. That's some pretty current data from ambulance teams, hospitals, and the police. In the United States, deaths due to suicide and unintentional overdose pose a major and growing public health concern. The combined number of deaths among Americans from suicide and unintentional overdose increased from 41,000 in 2000 to almost 111,000 in 2017. Statistics show that the profile many Americans envision while conjuring up images of the typical overdose victim is far from accurate. These deaths are not limited to back alleys and poor neighborhoods. In fact, a growing number of overdoses now occur in suburb and non-urban settings, often in affluent neighborhoods. According to the 2014 study, drug users most at risk of overdose are white, middle-aged suburban men. Even more surprising is their age. The CDC reports that the highest overdose death rate in 2015 represented people between the ages of 45 and 54. And I wanted to say one thing about Oregon. In 2017, the CDC breaks down not the 10 leading causes of death, they break down the 50. So it breaks up cancer. And right now, in the leading cause of death, all the cancers are piled into one. When it breaks it down 50 categories, Oregon is the leading cause of death. Suicide is the leading cause of death in Oregon for 15 to 54-year-olds. That's 4 age groups of 7, and there isn't a state in the country that has more than 3. I want to say, I guess a few seconds. I want to say our youth, 7% of our youth drink beer. 60% drink, these are 11th graders, drink liquor. Big difference. Our kids aren't beer drinkers. They're going hard. 16% are binge drinkers, 11% smoked, 14% e-cigarettes, and 28%, this is 2019, 28% marijuana. We've got to really pay attention to these issues, be aware of our friends that are in trouble, our neighbors are in trouble, and get a hold of the situation. We've got to stop every area that is involved in adding to our suicide rate. Thank you.
Commissioner Boyce?
Gordon, real quick. You know, often we hear Curry County leading the way, #1 in the various issues. And sometimes I take that with a grain of salt. Sometimes it's impossible to take with a grain of salt. And I started to make a joke there a minute ago when you said the beer reference and to the kids. And but it's not funny, because if we're leading the state, or even close to the head of the pack there, I mean, that is just a staggering statistic. So thank you. Good reminder. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Just one quickie. The 60% of kids that are doing liquor, there are the majority of those, well over 60%, with their parents' knowledge.
And they'll be one of the, I think it's on alcohol, 1 in 8 will become alcoholics, will become addicted. And in marijuana, it's 1 in 5 or 6 will become addicted.
So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thanks, Gordon.
All right, that closes the public comments. Before we move on to consent agenda, I'd like to ask the board to amend the agenda. I see Captain and Lieutenant outside, and we also have G under discussion. I'd like to move G up to A1 or whatever you'd like to call it.
Could I add something to that, Mr. Chair?
And can I finish?
I thought you were calling him up. Yes, I'm sorry.
I'd like to add it to like an A1, in case we have, as a board, questions for them, they could answer that while they're here, so we don't have to call them back. What was your question, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since we have several people here on the library consolidation ballot measure issue, I would recommend that the board, even though we've already approved the agenda, maybe move that up right behind the 2 law enforcement action items that we're reviewing here.
That's fine with me.
I appreciate that.
That's okay. That's
Thank
fine.
you.
All right. All right, so moving on to the consent agenda. A, minutes of business meeting July 1, 2020. B, safety committee appointments. C, accepting grant from Curry Community Health. D, authorizing contract legal services for Carlton Law Firm for 2021. Go ahead.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. I'll second that.
Further discussion? Yes.
Oh, gosh. I have one.
Well, sorry, I just have one change. If you're on that page, the order it says Gary Dexter, Bob Aldo. It says Karen Larson. Right, she's no longer here. So it should say, I believe that is Miranda Pike that takes her. So with that Scrivener's error, that's all. I apologize, my mic was not on. My mic was not on, so.
Yeah, if you would just repeat the last part of that again.
So on the safety committee appointments, there's a Scrivener's error, and we need to change Karen Larson's name in the order to Miranda Plagge. So
Thank you.
that's all, and I'll make that change if the board.
Commissioner
approves.
Boyce?
My apologies again. on the minutes for July 1. I'd like to bring that back to the next meeting. It appears to be just a little bit of confusion, not a huge thing on page 6. The minutes, the commissioners' reports between you and myself. And I think we need to give Staff Jessup another opportunity just to double check that.
So we're going to remove A from the consent agenda, and
Subject to board approval.
and we're going to make the correction that council has made to from Karen Larson to Miranda Plagge. With those changes, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as changed by those 2 corrections.
I have a second.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Aye.
Chair Pash,
Aye.
motion carried unanimously.
All right, next we have discussion and action items. First up is Columbia Care Mental Health Screening Services MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding with Curry County Jail, Sheriff Ward, and I see Lieutenant here. Morning, LT.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Lieutenant Joel Hensley, Curry County Sheriff's Office, Jail Commander. Back before COVID, Curry Community Health resources became very strained, so they were unable to provide us mental health services at the jail. We began looking for other resources. We're familiar with the counselor that used to work for them, now works for Columbia Care. So we began negotiating a memorandum of understanding. We're not contractually bound to only use them. We don't have to give up a certified amount every month, like a salary. It's just an as-needed basis. It's a memorandum we came up with so we can provide mental health services back to jail inmates. And so we're asking for signature authority to be given to the sheriff for this so we can begin getting mental health services back.
Commissioner Boyce?
Yeah, I support this. When you say signature authority, will you still be reporting to us and keeping us updated, I'm assuming, on everything you're dealing with, especially mental health? I mean, the more we can all learn as a community, the public.
It depends on how, a lot of that we can't.
I know some of it you cannot, of course I know you can't, some of you can't reveal, but just what you're up against.
What we're up against is quite a mountain, sir.
Just my point.
As far as individual services, no, we won't be reporting back on that because we have HIPAA, everything else, just like a doctor's office. We provide, medical and mental health services at the jail, but we can give you an overall of this is how the program's going, and this is the type of services they've provided for us, if that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely. We know, again, trying to understand what you're up against and how we can help and bring the community involved, but certainly no individual representations. Thank you again.
So I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash,
Aye.
motion carried unanimously.
Thank you.
You're right there. This next one's a doozy, isn't it?
I'm looking for my notes on this.
What, we did change the agenda to move this one. What
Yes, we
item
did.
are we talking about?
It's A1 now. It was
But I mean,
G.
what's the title of
yeah.
it? Okay.
And I thought I had the letter with me, and I don't know what happened to it. We have a letter of objection. Basically, it's a letter going out to all the electeds in the state. There's been some changes that the state is asking for to basically bring all of the sheriff or all of law enforcement's uniforms and the way that they wear their tactical gear. If you would maybe like to comment further on, you may know more about it
Yes,
than I do.
Mr. Chair, I have that letter.
I've actually read the proposed legislation, and the proposed legislation states that all law enforcement officers in the state of Oregon shall wear either white shirt, a light blue shirt, dark pants, have a name tag with identification number on it that's visible by your average person from 25 feet away, daytime or nighttime, and you cannot wear a outer vest carrier like this, okay? Number one, I work for a sheriff's office. I don't know a sheriff's office anywhere in the state of Oregon. Well, there might be one that doesn't wear anything but either green or brown. I've worked for a sheriff. It's our uniform. So, number one, we would have to completely purchase all new uniforms. Number two, we don't wear this particular outer carrier vest because it looks cool or anything like that. If you look at the history of law enforcement officers and what ends more law enforcement officers' careers than just about anything else are back issues. Those back issues are caused by, like Lieutenant wearing his full duty rig on your hips, all right? Causes lower back issues. So that's why almost all law enforcement agencies have gone to an external vest carrier, because then you can take most of your gear and put it on your shoulders instead of your hips. The other thing that this does is if I'm in the office, I can just unzip this, take it off, and I can be sitting at my computer comfortably typing. And when you're in your car, it actually fits a lot better, it rides a lot better, it's a lot more comfortable, and it breathes more because it's not sucked tight up against your body. There's a lot of reasons for wearing an external vest carrier, not just because you're on a SWAT team. Okay. All right? It gives you the ability to carry your gear in a way that's functional and works. Not just, like I said, because it looks cool, and it has nothing to do with military, right? It's law enforcement gear for law enforcement people. I was in the military. I didn't wear anything like this when I was in the military. All right? Yes, you have vests for carrying gear, but it's not this. It's not exactly this, and it's different. So, and none of us at the Curry County Sheriff's Office or any of the law enforcement agencies that I've ever worked with think that we're in the military. So, we strongly oppose this. They've tried to make it a Class A misdemeanor. I will tell you, put me in jail because I'm not wearing it. I will continue to wear the uniform as approved. So, sorry.
All right, so what I'm proposing to the board is this is the letter form that I had written, and I'm asking the board to join with me. Dear legislators, we are writing in regard to LC 743, which serves to establish additional requirements for peace officer uniforms. The Curry County Board of Commissioners urge you to reject any such legislation that puts our law enforcement at risk of confusing them with other law enforcement officers from other jurisdictions, thereby confusing the public on whose jurisdiction they are in or who to contact for assistance. Reduced protective gear will impede our officers' ability to protect themselves and put themselves in harm's way to protect the public, and erodes the ability of our officers to protect and serve in emergency situations. The Sheriff's Department's decision to go to an outer vest carrier was mainly to reduce back and hip injuries to our deputies and to spread the weight of their equipment to a load-bearing vest. Their vests, our vests, it says in here, are not military-looking. They match our sheriff's uniform, and our community recognizes us and supports that. Please reject fully any legislation on this matter. Respectfully, Commissioner Gold.
Maybe you can answer this question. This is the first, basically, that I've heard. What is the impetus the state has for doing this? What are their reasons?
It's all part of the nationwide knee-jerk reaction to everything that's going on in the world. The governor called a special session. Let's look at law enforcement reform, and some of the bills that they're introducing are, needless to say, objectionable. You know, no one in law enforcement opposes, everyone's like, let's get better. Let's do the best that we can. Let's learn from stuff. But to say that everyone has to look exactly the same, if you want military, let's make every law enforcement officer in the state look exactly the same. Now you're talking, let's look like a military. No, yes, we all should look different, but that's where this is coming from. It's coming from everything that's been going on in Portland, everything that's been going on nationwide, all the riots, all the let's use tear gas, let's don't use tear gas, let's make it illegal, let's make everybody look the same. Let's put a great big sign that says this is my name, this is my address, and this is my radio number, my badge number, whatever you want to call it, so that when I've pepper sprayed or done something to someone for whatever reason, they now know exactly who they get to file a complaint against for whatever reason, which we live in a small community. If one of my deputies does something that you want to file a complaint, come see me and we'll take care of it. We don't hide. We all know who each other are. So it's not only going on here, it's going on all over the United States right now. It's all part of defund the police movement, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I would support that letter wholeheartedly. My only suggestion, and I know the sheriff's office supports that letter 100%. My only suggestion, instead of sending it just to the state legislation, send it to each and every representative and state senator so that they know that we want you to vote no on this kind of stuff.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good letter. And good point on who to send it to. We can clarify that, and essentially I hear you saying all the above. It needs to get out. And by the way, this is not a legislative concept. This is a bill that started to actually get a little traction and making our heads spin some. So this letter's timely, very well done, and I'm ready to make a motion when you are, Mr. Chair.
Good. Oh, Commissioner Gold?
I just have one other question. I'm looking at, does the state government have the right to tell each individual county what their uniform should be?
My personal opinion is no, they don't. I'm not an attorney. I've got 33 years of experience in law, being a police officer, a deputy sheriff, whatever. But that's a challenge for the legal system. But like I said, if they wanted to, I know the opinion of our sheriff, and it's the same as what the board has, and the same statement that I had. We're not changing uniforms.
And are they going to pay for it?
Well, it'd be like any
it'd
be like any other unfunded state mandate.
Yeah, just curious.
It makes me wonder how our governor thinks that the federal government doesn't have the authority to come in and tell her what to do, but she has the authority to come to our county and tell us what to do.
Well,
there's that legal line that is drawn.
It is a bill that they're getting ready to vote on in Salem, so, yeah.
Commissioner Boyce, you have a motion?
Captain, I may have misspoke there. It says LC 743. That is a legislative concept, but my information said, like what you just mentioned there, they could vote on this in the next session, the special session. So anyway, is there anything else you wanted to add or subtract from that letter?
No, like I said, my recommendation would be that it go to each legislature, whether they're a senator or a representative, whether they represent our district or not, urging them, each and every one of them individually, to vote no if this comes up. This is just a bad, we all wear, our name tag. It has, who we are. What your radio number is, that doesn't, people, I want to know your badge number. I want to know who you are. If your badge number, that's really, but like I said, I would recommend it go to each one of our state government entities, each person, and recommend, urging a no vote if this comes up, when it comes up, and so.
And I do think it's very important that we need to identify who we represent. Each law enforcement entity has their own responsibility, roles and responsibilities. Oregon State Police, Highway Safety, city PDs, cities, sheriff, entire community. So it's important to know that we represent sheriffs on board, that people know that. So, but if we all wear the same thing, they don't know who we represent, what our roles and responsibilities are, and what our mission is. Right now, we have a defined sheriff's mission. They know that Captain McDonald, Lieutenant Hensley will represent that. We don't know that if we're all the same. So I hope that adds some clarity to that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair? Just a quick question. I think I know the answer. Oregon State Sheriff's Association?
Is opposed.
Unanimously with all the counties, is that fair?
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all.
Yep.
And my intent was to send this to all legislators in the state.
Can we include the senators, U.S. senators on that? Just to know where we are between the federal and state connection. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
So do I have a motion?
Well, Mr. Chair, would like to make a motion that the board approve this letter of objection to legislative concept or bill 743 regarding officer uniforms within the state of Oregon.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Yes.
Chair Pash?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, we are moving the library district discussion item up for next although we are at the 10 o'clock hour, if we could take just a brief 5 or 10 minute recess, and we'll come back at 10:10. You want me? I'll go try to get him. We just came back on. We're back on. Let's go ahead and let's get started. All right, we're back in. It is 10:10, August 5th. Next on the agenda is for discussion. We moved up 5E. We're just starting, JJ. You weren't late. We were just ready.
I did that.
This is an advisory question for the library district consolidation. And basically, we've talked about this at length several times. And I know that hearing many of the comments that have been talked about here this morning, everyone keeps saying that I'm trying to get rid of the libraries, and I'm really not. Again, we've discussed consolidation of the libraries. I know that this has to take place through a vote of the people, and the consolidation would have to be through the agreement of the boards of those libraries. I believe as time goes on, things change, and we can better serve the public by looking into those changes. And I think by asking this board to ask the public how they feel about the way the libraries are, could we do better if we consolidate? Could we do better if, all the boards look together for collaboration? Could all work together for grant programs, those kind of things. Is it time to look at the way that some of these districts are formed? In the 60s, I've said this before, President Kennedy formed a task group to find out what would be the most powerful thing that could bring this nation to its knees. And of everything there was, war and every disease and famine and everything that could happen in the world, that task force came back and said what would probably bring this nation to its knees first would be the continued growth of special districts. And again, I am not in favor of dissolving special districts. I am actually going to look to ask this board to possibly create a new special district in this county for our sheriff's department down the road, to permanently and in perpetuity fund that sheriff's department. I do want to give citizens a little bit of some facts. In the entire state of Oregon, there are 6 county library service districts and 25 special library districts. That's in the entire state of Oregon. 25 special library districts. And of those 25 districts in the entire state, Curry County has 5. So we have 20% of the library special districts in our little county of 23,000 people. The other issue that we have is the way that the budgets are divided up amongst the special districts, some having inadequate resources and others having cash reserves. And I've heard it said this morning that the tax rate for Brookings would go up. What this question asks for is to consolidate the districts into one new district. By that meaning that the library boards, we're going to ask the public to basically consolidate these library districts into one new library district and reassess the budgets and tax credit for that. Is that a legal question? That is to be determined down the road, how that would be done. But we have checked with the state and have checked the ORSs. What we're asking the public to do is to look at the districts, find out if we really feel that we need 5 library districts in the county. Could one library district be formed, consolidate all the libraries into that district, come up with a new tax rate for that district, and serve the public by consolidating your services, by consolidating staff somewhat. I know a lot of the libraries have a lot of volunteers that work really hard to make these libraries go. Some other comments that were made that our libraries are no longer needed in this document that was given to me this morning. I've never said the libraries are not needed. Libraries are an essential part to our community. Internet services, those kind of things, that I know a lot of people go to libraries.
I don't think you can talk unless you're invited up on the microphone. Can't even get you on the recorder. Sorry, Mr. Chair. Just trying to make sure we get everything down.
Again, I'm not opposed to libraries, and I'm not opposed to having those services for our county. I want to say this, and it's probably not going to sit real well, but when you're a library district or any special district, why wouldn't you oppose someone wanting to consolidate a district? You have your annual budget, and every year you know it's going to go up 3%, no matter what. Basically, our taxes go up 3%, and you know that without a special vote of the public, no one can touch that. I don't see itemized budgets even brought into the county. I've seen general budgets brought in. I've looked at those general budgets, but even the payrolls of some of the libraries, we don't see itemized budgets on those to be able to define what people are even paid. It's just, this is our payroll for the year. On that note, I've noticed that the payroll from the Chetco Library in Southern County has grown up dramatically in the last couple of years, and I don't know that the services have grown that much. But I'm not here to pick on that. What I'm here to ask for is this board to look into asking the voters of this county if they would vote to ask the public. I'm sorry, I misspoken. Asking the voters of this county to vote to ask the boards of these districts as their voice to consolidate into one new library district. Do we have any comments, commissioners? Commissioner Gold?
I got a number of emails from individuals that are adamantly opposed to this for various reasons, because each one of these districts is a governmental entity in unto itself. So what I did was I reached out to the librarians and said, can you comment on this? They came up with a report, and I thought it was a very good report. We can just put that into the record. I like numbers, so when they talked about, if you look on the second page of that report, how their libraries are used, it was pretty impressive. But I think one of the things, another thing that impressed me, if you look on page...
That's only 7 pages?
Yeah, it's not a big one. Okay, if you look on page 5 of the report, it shows how the libraries are working together as far as sharing costs and so forth. I thought this was impressive, and then I reached out to Julie Rutherford, and I said to her, how are you basing this? Does each library pay the exact same amount? And she said that it was based on population, and sometimes the larger areas or districts paid the whole amount. So it looks to me like they're working together. And then the last thing that really hit me, and I don't think this came out in the advisory question, was that tax rates, they would get the same amount of money no matter what if they were consolidated, and tax rates would change. That's according to law. So those are some of the reasons I don't think I can support this. Normally I'm in favor of voters determining things, but I think this was not worded real well. So those are my comments.
Mr. Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You and I struggle sometimes on agreeing on things. I think that goes without saying. However, I do have some agreement on this, and here's how I could support it. Because of this 7-page document that I didn't get this information until Friday afternoon. So I spent my weekend trying on all the fuels tax, consumption tax, beating the deadline for the November election. It looks like we're bulldozing or you might be. I'm not finding fault with you. I've said in the past, you trying to solve problems is noteworthy. I'll just leave it at that on that portion. But when you look at this 7-page document, maybe the directors of the libraries are a little late in getting together, but they have got together, and there was 3 of those documents that, honestly, I didn't review all 3 of them thoroughly, but this one I did. To Commissioner Gold's comments and analysis, here's how I would support it. If, in this unbelievable time frame that we have, basically we'd have 4 or 5 business days, that if we could sit down with a library board, we could go ahead and approve this be on the ballot. If we can't come to some sort of agreement, then we can get it off the ballot in time through the clerk's office, is my understanding. But we can't submit anything after, obviously, August 14th for obvious reasons. But if we could sit down with the library boards and said, okay, how do we move forward on this if in fact there is merit? Can you help us? Can we look the taxpayers in the eye and say we are spending absolutely every dime as frugal as we can certainly be? And if we could get them on board, which we should have done a long time ago, and I think we failed in that attempt, or this board individually or collectively did, and so we've got some hard feelings. And you can't solve problems when you got hard feelings. And yet I think your intent here is to try and solve a problem. So I would be willing to make a motion that we sit down with this board, we get it to County Council August 12th. If there is an agreement, I know that's only a few days, but it's the times we live in. We've got some real intense things going on in this county. Yeah, stating the obvious. So subject to that, if the board would look at that, and if we can't come to an agreement, at least for this general election, then we can postpone it later on. But we'll have some good data, some good work to evaluate. So if that helps, Mr. Chair, I could put that in the form of a motion, but I won't support anything that doesn't have the 5 library directors, I don't want to say unanimous, excuse me, collective support on this. Well, there's where I stand. Thank you.
And I appreciate all the comments, Commissioner Gold, to your comment. I appreciate that you've had people contact you and be against this. I will say that I've had a lot of people in the county contact me in support of it. I want to be clear because I sense frustration with some in the audience, and I want you to understand something. I am not against libraries. I am 100% for libraries. What I'm trying to do is look at a county budget and a tax base that addresses this county and how we pay our bills and find the best way to do that efficiently without having over too much services. Again, I would hope that everyone in the libraries that runs our libraries in this county and the people that support them would agree that the libraries in the last 30 or 40 years have changed dramatically and what their services are. It's gone from a book learning, people sitting, I can remember as a kid going to libraries and learning by reading books and encyclopedias and applying that to my schoolwork or my other work that I did. Things aren't that way anymore, as if we will admit it. We can literally hold our smartphone in our hand and Google, I want to learn today about how to rebuild a 1965 383 Chevy motor. And you say that into your phone and it pops up, and it populates 1,000 articles, and it gives you videos and explanations and all those things on how to do it. Do I think that discounts the library? No, I don't. All I'm saying is the services that libraries produce now versus what they did when I was a kid are completely different. When these districts were formed, they were formed at a certain level, and the tax rates have continued to grow over the years, and I just think there comes a time in each part of our government and the way that cities, counties, states, and the country pays our bills that we need to step back and take a look at things. I disagree that the tax rate shouldn't be changed for Brookings Harbor. It's hard for me as a taxpayer to know that Brookings Harbor has $2 million sitting in the bank, roughly, I'm estimating, and has a continued growth in their budget every year of 3%, and doesn't have the accountability. Well, put it this way, not the accountability. It doesn't have the knowing the needs of the county and the shortfalls of this county to see a library that knows that they could probably trim a little bit here and there and work a little bit harder to give back a little more to the community. And again, this is my opinion. When we have 7 figures in the bank, and yes, some of that was donated, and I want to say it's not nearly what I've heard it is, through looking through tax documents and filings from the libraries. I've heard it was more in the $300,000 range, not the $1 million range. My point being, if you have that much money sitting in the bank and you know the county, our sheriff's department, doesn't have 24 hours, 7-day-a-week service, or you know that, our mental health services in the county is depleted. We have so many other issues in this county that we could help with additional funding. Why at least you wouldn't want to say as a district, we've got plenty of cash for the next few years. Why can't we just pass on that and give additional money back to another district or earmark it towards something else? And there are ways legally to do that, even though SDAO doesn't admit that there are. I just don't understand why we wouldn't do that. I'm on the board for the Wedderburn Fire District, and we have an excess of cash right now that I'm going to request that our board step back from the taxing district for a couple of years, because if we're not going to spend that money, why do we need to continue to accumulate money in accounts that you're not using? So that's my biggest question for this, and I asked you months and a year or so ago to look into and possibly look to dedicate certain funds to different things rather than taking a continued tax every year. And I'm sorry I'm not eloquent in the way I say this and the proper legal language on how to say it, but there is a way that you could do that rather than continue to take that money and just hold it in reserves in the bank. At a meeting we had, I remember someone in the Brookings Library District saying that, well, we need that money in case we have an emergency. What if, we have a storm and we lose our roof? That's why we have insurance. And I'm sure the libraries all have insurance for those kind of things. So I can't imagine something happening in a library district that would require $2 million to fix. And all library districts don't have those cash reserves. There are some library districts that are, that I'd like to see have more, as I stated last year. So, again, this is a decision for this board to make, and I'm not asking the board, again, to dissolve library districts. I'm asking the board to ask the citizens, by voting, to ask our library to consolidate to one new district and dissolve the districts that they currently have. If we can do that this cycle, I'd like to see that happen. If we can't, then we can move it hopefully to next year. I don't know. I think we probably, as Commissioner Boyce has stated, probably have some time constraints to clear this up, and maybe it was pushed through a little bit quick, but because it was the November ballot, we tried to get it pushed in.
No, not we. Sorry, sir.
Aye, okay.
That's okay.
I agree with that.
You've heard people say, if I may, Mr. Chair, sorry. You've heard people say, that disrupts the trust, and that breaks my heart, because I worked here 4 years to try and get that public trust, and so to not learn about this till Friday, it leaves me feeling a little different emotions, okay? If I may, I want to add something here. What we're doing, or what you're proposing, is you want to use the advisory or the survey system to go before the voters. That's very expensive. I've talked to the clerk. I didn't need to talk to the clerk to verify this, but we're putting potentially 4 different things on the ballot, and that comes out of the county budget. I did say, though, there's some things about this I agree with. It's just the method of problem solving that I'm really struggling with. I do have one thing that I just want to caution. I don't need any public comment on this, but with three specific library directors here, some of the statistics, almost 300,000 people visit our libraries. I'm not saying that those are exaggerated. However, I sometimes see figures used. I mean, there's 8 or 10 counties in the state of Oregon. Some say we have the highest unemployment rate. When you go look and evaluate that a little bit, you can kind of dissect how much of that is really accurate. I'm not saying this is not accurate, but that is a staggering figure. And if it's true, it's eye-opening. If it's in any way unintentionally exaggerated, I just want to caution on what that might say to the public, because people might go, they don't have credibility, and I don't want that to happen. So just be aware of that. So I'm ready to make a motion on pulling in the library directors, and I know we didn't have anybody get on the Citizens Revenue Task Force Committee, but I think there's an opportunity here to build a dialogue and to problem solve, and if it doesn't work, we take it off the ballot, or we postpone it possibly to the 2021 primary ballot.
I have another suggestion.
Okay.
Since we have 3 library directors here. I would be willing to withdraw the motion if the library directors would be willing to meet with us in a workshop, bring your actual broken down budgets, and actually talk line by line budget items with us, so that we can actually look at budgets and see if there's a way that things could be consolidated and shared, or cutting the tax rate some. Because you can do that through a board vote. We've got to find better ways to manage our money. You would step up to the microphone, sir.
Just for clarification, what I don't understand is the cutting of the taxes, because it's my understanding that we can choose to not collect, but can you clarify where that money goes that we don't collect?
Well, it would go back into all of the districts. From my understanding, if I'm correct, Council, it would go back into all of the districts in the.
I don't exactly know that answer, just as we're here today. I'll be honest with the board. I had my hand up a little bit, and I know. No, that's okay. But if there was I saw some things in here that legal counsel would review these things. I've got a heck of a lot on my plate. If consideration of my availability time is anything, this would really, really crunch me hard if I had to get involved in this to meet some deadline, is all I've got to say. I mean, if the board directs me to, I'll do what I can, but just for your information.
Commissioner Gold?
Let me just make one comment. The Checo Library chose to take a lower rate several times, and that money just goes back to the taxpayer.
Correct.
I'm not going to ask you to withdraw the motion. I might, please.
I just wanted to comment on your proposal that you would withdraw the motion. I can't speak for my board or for the other libraries, and I'm hesitant to do that, to agree to do that, for a couple of reasons. One is that I feel like that is the elected board, library board's responsibility to be in charge of that. For us to sit down with the county commissioners who don't have authority over the library districts in order to have a conversation where we answer to you about what we're doing line by line, I think brings you guys into a conversation that is outside of your authority. Not opposed to having those conversations, to looking at our budgets and seeing where we can cut, but I can tell you that we do that every year. And we have done it, and we continue to do it, and we look for ways to save money. So it's not a matter of us that we're spending excessively.
Uh-huh.
And in one of your statements, I think you had said that our revenues exceed our budgets. You're talking about Chetco salaries. We were woefully understaffed when I started, and so we added positions that Now we have adult programs that we didn't have. Now we have digital services that we didn't have. So those increases did increase services. And our insurance costs this year went up 15%. We gotten quotes, tried to find ways to keep that down. Our PERS costs are going up 5% next year. So that 3% increase that you're talking about is a cap on taxable assessment rates that is barely covers cost of living. It doesn't cover our annual increase even remotely. So I'm rambling. My point is, I'm willing to go ask my board about meeting with the commissioners to discuss this, but I think it's really should be left up to the boards to do that. And I can't sign off on agreeing to that. I can't agree with the motion language as it is now, because I do think it is biased and it doesn't meet that requirement for being unbiased. And it would lead the voters to assumptions that aren't true in the language that it's used. So I'm not opposed to working together, to having those conversations, but I can't commit us to agreeing to work on this budget thing together in order to get you to drop the motion today.
Well, I want to say a couple of comments, if you wouldn't mind staying there.
Sure.
First of all, I want to thank your board for meeting with me last year, because you went out of your way to meet with me, and we discussed some of this, and I did feel at that point that your board was receptive to talking about it. You know, as council has just told me, you know, he's going to be hard-pressed to be able to get some of this through, as he has a lot on his plate as well. But I want you to understand that I don't feel like you're being, and this is for all the library districts, I don't feel like you're answering to this board. You're answering to the citizens of the county that created these districts.
Somebody in the audience talking.
You're answering to the citizens of the county. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to move to remove B, C, D, and E from our discussion items from the agenda.
Discussion. Do you want that? Is that a motion? I'm sorry.
It is.
I'm going to second that with discussion, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I don't want to lose an opportunity here to bring this, somehow your action here prompted them to get together and put this 7-page program together, and it is very beneficial to everyone as far as I'm concerned. I just don't want to lose this opportunity. I'm not saying I want to lead a discussion down the road, obviously the directors can't do anything without their board approval, but hopefully at some point in time we would be able to pull them together and do this work and see if there's merit in what there's just a lot of unanswered questions. Thank you for being sensitive to Council Huddle's time. I think it was almost improper for me to suggest this could have been done in 4 to 5 business days, but I would have been here 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening if that's what it would have taken to bring the community together, to bring the citizens together, and just dispel a lot of rumors and learn. There's just so much there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Gold, did you have something? I thought I saw you.
Oh, I'm just going to have to say I agree with what you're doing. I didn't feel like I had enough time to delve into this. I reached out to the superintendents of schools. They're over their heads and getting ready for opening of schools, so I didn't get much back from them. And I think before we do any of this, we need to dig into it more deeply and come up with a more cogent ballot measure that people can understand.
I'll say this. I was elected, I think on a large part, because I'm a digger. I dig into the way things are being done, and I try and find answers and ways to fix them. The citizens of this county created through this board and adopted these special districts. I believe that there comes a time in everyone's history that you need to reassess where you are, what you're doing, what your goals are, and how you pay for those goals. The goals of this county right now are fast changing. We see everything in this nation that's happening around us, and we don't have ways to fund a lot of it, especially law enforcement. What I see happening not only in Portland but across this nation is frightening, and we have to find ways to fund it. And I don't want it stated that I'm trying to take the money from libraries and take that service away from the county, because that's not true. What I'm trying to do is look at all of the tax base that comes into this county and how it's spent, and making sure that the tax dollars of this county are well spent. I'm not running for office right now. I'm trying to find the best thing to do for the citizens of this county and make sure that they are protected, which is the very first thing that I was sworn to do, is to protect the citizens of this county. Our law enforcement is greatly underfunded. Every year, our sheriff's department looks for ways that he can continue to provide services to the people of this county, and I want to help him in every way I can to do that in perpetuity. If that means looking at every district, looking at everything that everyone pays and how they spend their budgets, that's what the people of this county elected me to do. So, again, I will make that motion to remove these 4 items. And again, to clarify, that would be B, C, D, and E from the discussion and action items.
So we're removing all of them?
All 4 ballot measures, yes. Those are all presented by me because of the constraints of our county council and because of lack of time, I think, to push this through, because I feel like it is maybe being pushed through instead of wisely taking the time to look at it. I would ask, though, that the districts that are addressed in these contact us, and let's set up workshop dates, hopefully, that we can all sit together as adults and talk about this and do the best for the citizens that created the districts and put us sitting here today to work together to make sure their tax dollars are well spent. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to request that we not put all of those 4 into one motion. I have some comments about the consumption tax. I have, even right now, if you would permit, sir, just in relation or in reference to the library district consolidation. I think your school district consolidation has merit. So I don't want to cut off the discussion if we don't absolutely have to today. I don't mind staying here whatever late it takes, or however late, excuse me. But I would like to request the board to do those individually one at a time, if we may. And the reason I'm just pushing that a little bit, if I may, on the consumption tax and the responsibilities we have for law enforcement, you've heard me say a few times, multiple times in the last year, public health, the money we need for public health is starting to give law enforcement, public safety, quite a run for its money in competition. And there's some other issues that are, per your point, there's an evolution here of what we're dealing with. And so I'm looking over my shoulder at public health saying, I think this whole Curry Community Health thing could have been avoided if we would have had a little extra money. So that's part of the burden that we carry to try and figure this out and get the funds. So I'm just going to be standing firm for both law enforcement and public health. And right now, personally, I don't know which has the greater need to the citizens of this county. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, again, as ballot measures, I think these are they need more work on them than we have time for. I am fully in support of bringing something back to discuss the library or the school districts and the consumption tax. But I want to, from my point, because I am the signer on this, to withdraw those 4 motions or withdraw those 4 measures for further discussion.
So I have one more comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
You know, 2 of these are involved with taxes that I don't necessarily support or against or opposed to right now. But I want the public to know we're not, in my view, controlling costs in this business, this program. I won't go into it today, but I can give many examples of how we're spending. And I've failed to bring this board on to recognize those and the breakdowns in the teamwork here and the effort and all the above. So I'm going to let it go at that. And I just want the public to know that I'm bird dogging every day, documenting what I see as unacceptable waste. I don't talk about it, I document it, and I try and bring it up to the board. Thank you.
I just want to bring one issue up. I think all of these issues probably have merit, but we need to probably have a workshop with the people involved so we know the pros and the cons, and if things are brought up, then the public will have a real clear understanding of what they're voting on.
And again, I would hope that we can start to develop a relationship with our districts, a little closer relationship, whether it be the library districts, school districts, whatever districts we have, and get that dialogue going. So I've made the motion. Do I have a second?
More discussion, please.
Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
Thank you. I apologize here, Mr. Chair. We have Shulia Megson, who is Chief of Staff for Representative Brock Smith, who is available to call in. Other than former Commissioners Bill Waddle and George Rhodes, even David Idson, those three have been incredible resources. I mean, I've got documentation on the consumption tax that's very thorough and I think would be very useful. And Ms. Megson is right in that group, along with even Gary Milliman. So I'm just afraid that the discussion and the movement in at least reviewing this, I want the public to know that, remind that in April of 2017, I think it was, in 2018, if we'd have pulled a consumption tax off that could have been acceptable to the public in whatever variety, according to these figures and according to your figures, which pretty well match, we would have had about $3 million in the bank right now. I had both Commissioner Huxley and Commissioner Gold twice would not oppose even a review of that. So I think that cost us thousands of dollars, and I think your presentation verifies that in trying to get this before the voters and highlighting your research. So it's a sad day. I haven't given up, but our shoppers coming over from Dale North County, we spend a certain amount of that for tourism promotion and keep them coming. Tourism A, Dale North County shoppers, tourism B, the folks that travel and visit here. There is so much opportunity that no other county in the state of Oregon has. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Roll, please.
Commissioner Gold,
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce,
Yes.
Chair Pash,
Aye.
motion carried unanimously.
All right, moving on to
Where are we?
5F, intergovernmental agreement with Coos County in support of Community Development Block Grant, Small Business Micro Enterprise Grant, Business Development, Summer Madison, Economic Development Coordinator. Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Summer Madison, Economic Development. I'm now sorry I didn't ask for this to be put on the consent agenda or consent calendar. Pretty self-explanatory in the agenda routing slip. I wanted to make sure you had enough information in there in the event that I was not able to be here to speak on behalf of the grant opportunity that we have. This has been a project that has kind of morphed into something more specific as far as COVID response goes. Initially, this was not the focus of the grant, but as we move forward in the longevity of the pandemic, this is where the grant has gone. Worked with CCD on several other grant opportunities and work with them regularly in the recovery mode for small business and e-commerce throughout the county. Coos, Curry, and Douglas. Commissioner Boyce and myself both serve on the board for CCD and know that signing on with this IGA with Coos taking the lead will give us the opportunity to leverage those options for our small businesses as well to continue to leave Curry County open as the lead for a CDBG grant when we decide what that looks like.
Commissioner Boyce.
Quickly, thank you, Mr. Chair. Coos County's been, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're in taking the lead here, Ms. Madison. They're also taking a little bit of the workload, and I think that's the way Tracy Loomis set it up from CCD, right? They're
Right, so CCD would kind of oversee everything. Coos signs on for the financial and administrative responsibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that really does take the pressure off staff here at the county.
Commissioner Cribbin, by the way. Thank you.
Well, for the next 2 months as commissioner.
Yeah.
She's done. Yes,
She's working hard.
Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair, that we accept this IGA intergovernmental agreement with Coos County in support of the CDGB grant.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll, please.
Mr. Gold?
Aye.
Vice Chair Boyce?
Aye.
Chair Patch?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, commissioners.
Moving on to H, Boys
Give us
Cove
a
Park.
minute.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like you, I got to find my notes. My goodness. I've been hearing from different citizens. Not saying I necessarily agree with their observations or their conclusions, but a lot of concern and a public health concern. Let me read you, if I may, just a couple of the comments. The numbers went up dramatically in the last year or two, number of visitors. People are parking on non-site spaces and in what had always been, this is not edited, but it's okay. It's the spirit and the, just helping the board understand is behind it. What had always been day parking this summer has evolved out of control. There have been as many as 4 vehicles per spot. 2 spots had 6 tents. Half appeared to be camped on by 3 or more campers. People were parking just off the road and running extension cords to other campsite electrical outlets. Well, I'd like to get that verified to make sure. I'm sure that this person saw what they saw, but I know that sends antennas up for all of us in the safety, which has nothing to do with the COVID. It has, let's see. I'm sorry, it came as no surprise when the septic went down. The buzzer had been going off for weeks. The buzzer went off last summer repeatedly. The system is frequently overloaded, which in and of itself presents a health issue. Add to that concern of a large numbers in close proximity, wearing no mask, and many not practicing social distancing, resulting chaos. Let me read one more. Hello, Commissioner. I'm writing to you to express my concern about the immediate health risk posed to the Flores Lake community and Greater Curry County by the current operation of Boys Cove County Park. As a resident adjacent to the Boys Cove Park, I see what is happening there every day. I am very concerned. We have virus super spreading conditions at the park and boat launch. There have never been this many people in the park and day parking lot. Very few people are following the governor's requirement to wear masks, and there is a little to no distancing, with camping spots jammed full. Furthermore, I understand the bathrooms and showers were shut down because the septic system is not functioning properly, as it was never built to handle this excessive number of people. You know, both of them go on to say, what's this going to do to the quality of the park? What's it going to do to our long-term growth in that park and just the reputation in general? I think all of us are becoming more familiar with what the opportunities are there. And yet we know that part of that's because of the state parks decisions and where that's left the pressure on the smaller parks. But it's getting more intense, and I've got a huge concern there. I'm not, at one time, I wanted to say I went this weekend, some improvements. However, as I said, it's getting pretty stressful there. We've got rotating new park host. There is, it's just not the experience that it was a year or 2 or even 3 years ago when Jay Trost was running the program. So I'm not making a specific recommendation to the board, except that we all need to be intricately involved in what is happening there, how we're correcting. You know, you're going to hear me over the years probably over the weeks or months, propose that we could contract out the management of this park and save thousands of dollars, and they can take that liability, they can take that responsibility back to how we can save money. in this county, and that responsibility we have. I'm not recommending that now, but I do see a yellow blinking light here that gives me great concern. We're increasing our revenue, but it's not about revenue. It's about public safety and the quality of that park, and keeping good camp hosts and keeping our reputation. So I'm open to board discussion here. There's more information I could read and offer to the board. Perhaps you received some of these emails, but I'm very concerned, and we're not going in the direction we want to go, in my view. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Identify yourself, please.
Yeah, Anthony DeRock, Curry County Parks. I didn't hear all of what Commissioner Boyce had stated, but in regards to some of it, with the electrical cord, the previous camp host had spoke to that individual. They were on a Lakeview site, so I'm fully aware of some of the things that he's mentioning, and previous camp hosts spoke with said guest about extension cord across the road, told him twice to remove it, and the second time I was notified that he was telling him a second time, and I told him if he sees it again, tell him to leave the campground. But apparently they were friends. That's one of the issues that arises in Boyce Cope Park, is that people have been coming there 20, 25 years. And just to jump on to the septic issue, it wasn't that the septic couldn't handle the capacity. That wasn't even the issue at all. It was actually an electronic malfunction. The entire system had to be reprogrammed, and it required a chip that we had to get from the company. So, and you had mentioned about the buzzer going off years prior. That was, when I wasn't there. I had no control over that situation. I have, numbers, as you said, revenue is up. We are social distancing. We aren't allowing large groups of people in one site. We do have signage posted all over the park. We have actually closed the restrooms to people that are not guests. So to the general public, we closed the restrooms for, cleanliness and traceability reasons. We also stopped allowing guests to come into the park that aren't, visitors to come into the park that aren't guests, to also limit the contraction of said virus, COVID-19, and also for traceability reasons. I have lots of information right here in front of me that I could go through, numbers, how many sites, how often we're booked. You had mentioned about multiple cars and tent sites on top of each other, stuff like that. I have pictures of when I was just there the day after one of those emails or the day of, and it shows that the park is not full. I have paperwork here from the reservation system that also proves that we are never at full capacity. People are allowed an extra vehicle in their site if they pay the fee for the extra vehicle. Like I said, I was unable to hear everything that you had said, but I have multiple paperwork showing that we're following all the guidelines of COVID. We're cleaning the restrooms multiple times a day. We are encouraging social distancing, indoors and outdoors. Indoors, it's a limit of like 10 people. You can't fit 10 people in the restrooms at Boyce Cope, so that's not a factor. There isn't 10 facilities within each one. What else?
Can I ask a couple questions?
Yes, sir.
I understand before Mr. Schmelzer left for vacation, there was an issue with the camp hosts were switching again or something. Has that been resolved, that we now have 2 camp hosts up there, correct?
We actually have one. We have one at the moment.
Okay, I thought we were putting in for a second one.
We are.
Okay. Yes.
We've lost 2, though, in the last 60 days. Is that accurate?
When I
camp
first
posts.
started, the initial camp post that apparently was there for some time left the park unattended without telling anybody, hooked up the trailer and left.
I'm going to dispute that just a little bit. I mean, I'm starting to collect a lot of evidence. I don't think he was handled correctly. I'm not pointing at you, but the transition did not go well, and there were some tremendous issues between him and the previous parks coordinator. So, I'm just sorting all that out so I can get the facts and not making any conclusions here. But what I hear you saying, if I understand correctly, you feel that all is well, the camp's not overloaded, and these emails are invalid.
Not exactly. Some of them, they're people's opinions. For an outside citizen to know the capacity of our facilities, whether it be talking about people or the septic, that's outside of their knowledge.
Okay, so, but I think we can verify that some have been there for 2 decades. So they're intimately involved, intimately aware of what goes on in that park. It could even be nosy, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not
but
sure.
they recognize, they're wise enough in their years to understand a potential public health issue, risk. And so that's my reason for bringing it to the board. And also, just one more question, Mr. Durock. I'm sorry, I didn't see you come in, or I would have acknowledged you out of respect. But you said that apparently the party that had the extension cord was friends of the first park host to leave. Do you have evidence of that?
Oh, no. I think you misunderstood what I had mentioned. So,
okay, thank you.
One of the sites, the site that was actually running the extension cord was, I believe it was a Lakeview site, which is on the outer edge of the park facing the lake. It was running an extension cord from its site across the paved portion of the road to a center water and electric site, which they were friends with, or they could have even been family. I didn't get whether they were friends or family.
Okay, I just thought I heard you said they were apparently, is the word you use, friends of the original camp host. So I just needed that.
No.
Okay, thank you. What? Go ahead.
I thought we were talking about the person's email about the crowding, or we seem to be getting...
We're fine, Council.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, so what I'd like to do is, I'd like to ask you, so at this point, you feel like the situation at Boyce Cope is safe?
Yeah. We do have the signage posted. We do have the facility bathrooms closed to the public, so it's only for guests that are at the park. We're trying to be able to maintain traceability if something does occur. So we're not just left open with, well, people come and go just to use the restrooms, or people come and go just to visit people that are staying here. We're trying to limit that and trying to increase the, traceability. We do have signs posted about social distancing and masks and all that.
Okay, so one more question on the septic system issues. That chip has been replaced. Everything is reprogrammed and working fine. There's no more issues with that.
Yes. For a moment, we were at the mercy of another company, the company that controls the electronic portion of our septic system. Our septic system isn't just a traditional, easy home style septic. It consists of multiple tanks and things of that nature, and there's actually a computer system that runs it.
So when those people were there to replace that chip and reprogram, did they give you any reason for concern that the septic system was overloaded, or there was any issues that we needed to address as a county?
No.
Okay. I understand that the parks right now, because states' parks are closed, are overwhelmed, with probably much more than is our norm. But, to hear you say that, the people that were there to just program this chip and look at our septic system, that they feel that it's adequate right now, gives me some comfort.
Whoa.
Yeah.
finish?
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understood. I'll come back. Thank you.
So that helps me, and also to know that we are not at capacity, even though we may have more day, as you stated, more day people in there than normal. We are not at capacity. We are trying to grow the parks in the county, and I understand that you may be a little overwhelmed right now with that being, still getting up to speed. But with what you've just said, I'm comfortable. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you again. You did confirm, or I'm asking because I might have missed it, but you said you believe that what Mr. Drog just answered was there is adequate capacity. And the company that you're dealing with now, the new company, is that correct?
Excuse me, I'm trying to...
For a new company, new septic company that you're dealing with?
It's not new. It's the same one that the county has been using for years.
And they're assuring you that the capacity, the septic system capacity is more than, or at least adequate right now?
Yes, I was actually dealing with the owner of the business directly there on site and over the phone dealing with these issues. And what had happened was an alarm. As you had mentioned, someone that doesn't know the system might think that that was, say, a level alarm, but it was actually indicating a filter and a float, and the actual chip needed to be reprogrammed. You know, so it wasn't what somebody might think it was from prior hearsay. You know, it was actually something else. But like I had mentioned, I've fully walked through and evaluated the entire system. We have one tank that I'm in the process of probably having him come and empty, but it's, you know, it's not hindering the system. We're up and running. The only reason why we had them closed was because of the chip. Even when the alarm was running, the system was still fine. We didn't pump anything out. Nothing got pumped when those alarms went off. It was just purely the computer chip. So we brought in Sandy cans, porta potties, and they were serviced regularly, cleaned, stocked. They had hand sanitizer in them. We have hand sanitizer for the guests in between the restrooms. You know, we're following all the guidelines and everything that we're supposed to be doing.
So the name of that company again, and where are they located, if I may?
I don't have it right here with me.
Okay, you can let me know when you can. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so, yes.
Commissioners, like Commissioner Boyce mentioned earlier, you know, we have prime opportunity in Craig County to draw tourists, and that's a huge economic benefit for us. COVID is special circumstances, and we're seeing the effects of COVID on every level, every capacity, socially, emotionally, mentally. Everything I think that's come before you, law enforcement, some of the suicide awareness speakers that came this morning, all of this is heightened because of COVID. And so I think we need to be mindful that we need to make it through this busy season and how it affects our county, and be prepared for next year, because this probably is not going away. But we've never dealt with these circumstances to this extreme, and it affects everything and everybody. And I think we kind of probably need to take a step back and reevaluate where that's coming from before we start, you know, burdening systems that maybe shouldn't get to that extent in the first place. For instance, law enforcement. We can continue to bring more funding to law enforcement, but until we address the mental health issues and the homelessness issues that are going to continue to rise because of COVID, we're really not solving anything. So if we really want to have that conversation about fixing the wellness of our society, it takes more than just law enforcement and short-term fixes. And thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
I just want the public to know, these people have credibility with me. As I said at the very beginning, I don't necessarily agree with them because I don't have all the facts, but they do have credibility, and so I'm going to be watching real close, and I want the public to know, as a member of this board, as one commissioner, I have a concern for what's going on at that park, so it's my responsibility to look closer, and I will be. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Moving on to 5I, FEMA grant. Commissioner Boyce.
Well, Economic Development Coordinator Madison, are you gone?
She left.
Just around the corner, okay. I'm going to postpone this, I think. The FEMA program just extended the deadline till October. We just have received a lot of emails from AOC that is encouraging all the counties on the basis of should we need a mass or a larger number of quarantine shelters. And we have Beth Barker Hidalgo here that could put a little light on this, and Summer's been working on it, Ms. Madison's been working on it as well. And this is money that's reimbursable. And the lady that was going to call in this morning, and I apologize to her, and again I apologize to the board, runs a consulting company that AOC recommends highly, and they're trying to get all, especially the rural counties, to join in the qualifying for those FEMA's potential reimbursements. And so if we had a big surge of COVID and we needed housing, we're not in a position right now to respond. And so that's the basis for this late addition to the agenda. Did I say agenda? Agenda, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to bring Beth up first if we can.
Oh, I thought we were going to put it off.
I'm sorry. When I saw Summer come back in, Mr. Chair, and realized that Beth was here for that purpose, I would rather not postpone it. It would almost be just a little bit of a discussion, perhaps even a clarification.
One more thing, if you could please hold counsel. I have legal notice for...
May I?
I just saw that on my papers here.
You know what? That is fine. That notice has been corrected. That hearing will be noticed for the 19th.
It was for 11 o'clock, and it's
Yep.
after. That's why I interrupted you.
Good. That notice got changed to the 19th without your knowledge, so apologize for that.
No, not a problem. So go ahead then. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Okay. Summer wants to go first. Appreciate it.
Sure, yeah, I'll just say what I have to say quickly and then be on my way. Summer Madison Economic Development, we have the opportunity to secure some funding that coincidentally is not typically eligible for federal funding match. And this funding opportunity really has to be processed through public health. We know that our public health resources are strapped. So the proposal is that the commission give us the opportunity to delve deeper into the opportunities for the funding it's basically, how do I explain it?
75%.
It's not housing, it's shelter, it's to have something in place because we're seeing our numbers go up. I'd rather be ahead of the game and have something procured as opposed to try and catch up when that funding opportunity is not available. And so I'm hoping that the commissioners will agree that they support developing a plan to apply for the funding through public health so that we can start addressing the potentials. Maybe we'll never need it, but if we apply and we are approved for that funding, we're one step ahead of the game.
A big step. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Gold?
I just have one question. With federal funding, a lot of times there comes a lot of strings attached. So I think it's going to be important that we know exactly what's expected of us and what our future obligation is going to be before we get into any of that.
Well, that's a great comment, Commissioner, and thank you for bringing that up. Actually, this all just came to light here the past few days on my desk, literally I think 2 days ago. I understand that it's been a conversation that's been going on for several weeks. Commissioner Boyce and some other contacts have been pushing to fast track a development of a program so that we could use this grant. But I will say the more information we can kind of line out and see how it applies to us specifically, we would go ahead and propose that. But we won't do that without partners like ORCA, who we think are probably better equipped with staff and resources to oversee all of that. Now, we haven't gotten any kind of commitment, but there are several nonprofits and organizations that are very excited to work together in collaboration to make this happen.
Let me tell you why I made that comment. As a port commissioner, previous port commissioner, what happened was they took some federal grant money, and the property had to be dedicated for that specific purpose in perpetuity, even though down the line it didn't fit. So I think it's real important that you be careful about the strings that are attached.
The only thing I would add to that is this is part of the current presidential administration, and they are doing everything they can to fast track and get the funds here. So I don't have any apprehension. I don't have my other information available. I can conclude this after. Beth, do you have anything you want to add? Ms. Madison, if you don't mind, stay close just in case we have a couple quick questions there.
I guess I would just say that we did have a conversation with Alex Campbell, Regional Solutions Coordinator for our region, and Rachel Maddox-Hughes, who's the consultant contracting with AOC, and Court Voice and myself, and we talked about potential projects and what's already happening in counties, Lincoln, Lynn, Benton, for example. And those counties are applying for these funds, but they are entering into IGAs with their community action agencies, which for us is ORCA, to administer the grant. So there is some upfront labor involved, obviously. We have to do the research to determine whether or not it's even a grant that we can manage on the backside. But I can tell you right now that last Friday we spent the day triaging, 30 or so people down at St. Timothy's, and 2 of those folks are in their 70s. One of them has stage 4 lung cancer and is in dire need of hospice care, but because he's homeless, he's not eligible for hospice. So we called for over an hour from Brookings to Port Orford trying to find a motel room for him to get him settled for a couple of weeks so we can get hospice established, and they can take it from there in terms of a more long-term situation. We could not find a room. We've been bumping up against this and having to move people from Gold Beach to Port Orford and Gold Beach to Brookings, and it's like playing chess, trying to get people situated during this situation, COVID, if they have underlying health issues or any susceptibility to contraction of the virus. So we're already at capacity, and I know we'll dip down when tourist season is over and COVID still exists, but there's an opportunity here for us to develop. We don't have sheltering for general population in Curry County. This is non-congregate sheltering. Just pie in the sky, some of the things that are being considered in other counties is like purchasing a motel, for example, where our unsheltered folks can be in non-congregate sheltering environment moving forward. So and I like the idea of ORCA being involved. Kim Brick has been contacted, and she will look into it more and probably be in touch with you guys.
Thank you. So what I'm going to propose, these 20-minute teleconferences, the shortest conferences I've had in a while, just have been very productive, very helpful. Diana Cooper testified earlier today. She is greatly involved, and I'm just meeting some new citizens that I know have a lot to contribute. So my fault, lost the opportunity with Ms. Maddox-Hughes, and so I think we'll bring something back on the 19th and more concrete. Should actually put it on an action item, Mr. Chair. So, but we're anxious on this, and it's a really great program, and we just want the county to qualify ahead of time, as Ms. Madison said, hopefully that we don't get to that point. And by the way, we're not promoting by the county purchasing a motel right now. It's just, we need shelter for some of these people, and if one of those 30 at St. Timothy's gets tested positive, oh my gosh. So we need to respond as quickly as we can. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can I ask you to step back up to the microphone, please? Perhaps you can answer this, perhaps you can't, but I'm just wondering if you have approached any of the motel owners in Curry County and say, would you offer to donate a block of rooms of, 6 rooms, I don't know what the number is that you would need to get us through this time of hardship. For them, it's a complete tax write-off. If they're a larger hotel system, and they have a couple of rooms in an area that, is not the most opportune to rent, they maybe, if they know they're going to have a 100% occupancy for those rooms for a tax write-off reason, that they might block a group of rooms, offer that to the county, to you for services. It might be an excellent way to find out, because I'm sure that our hotel occupancy in this county right now, you may have hotels in all 3 cities that have a few rooms that they would be willing to donate, as long as we give them the documentation necessary for their taxes, that they would get a full write-off for it on their taxes. They'd be more than willing to do that.
Well, that was our intention initially with Jots Resort. But once the transit lodging opened back up again, they weren't amenable to working with us any longer. And so, but we haven't explored it with other chain like Motel 6. We're doing a lot of work with Motel 6 right now, and they're keeping their rates at an affordable rate for us, which is nice. As far as blocking off a portion of their rooms for this purpose, it's something we can talk about.
But
for sure.
I guess what my comment would be is an approach to them, and I know I have an ex-federal auditor in the room, so I want to be careful with what I say here. I know that under federal guidelines, if you block rooms for a long period of time, they can charge the full rate of what they could get for those rooms on a tax return versus a discounted rate that you might have on a drive-up. So it would be possibly more beneficial to their bottom line for write-offs, and of course it would benefit you and your operations in the county.
Sure, and as well, if we were found to be eligible for these FEMA grants, being, as Summer mentioned, I'm a grant writer and a project manager, and I've not ever seen an opportunity where we can match federal dollars with federal dollars. So Orca, for example, has received CARES Act money, so there's your local match right there. And if we were eligible for these funds, then we could approach and say, hey, we know we're going to have the monies to be able to pay you whatever that rate is for those blocks of rooms at a site. So, thanks.
Right. Thanks.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Real quick, 3 sentences. At AOC, the opportunity is this: AOC can provide assistance to help counties prepare and submit applications to FEMA for non-congregate shelter NCS funds. The cost of this assistance will be reimbursed with the FEMA funds as part of an individual county NCS application, keyword application, by the way. In addition, AOC has formed a private-public turnkey partnership with several state and local partners that can help counties who want to use hotels and motels for non-congregate shelter. They will help us find the funding as well to pay for any consulting fees if we go that route, if the board decides. So we'll get back to you on the 19th.
And my whole statement to you was on a purely philanthropic mission. A lot of hotel owners, I would imagine, would want to reach out and help. I just know a lot of people in Curry County are very philanthropic, so it's an approach.
But aren't they all pretty full right now, and probably will be through the middle of September? I mean,
I'm not saying they're not, but if they're
getting the same rate,
they're going to get an exorbitant rate. They can actually charge whatever their high line is for their room. If they're going to block rooms, I believe, and I'm not going to give them tax advice, but I believe they can charge the absolute top dollar that they advertise at versus a discounted rate that they may have for a walk-in.
and I think the theory there is it might be cheap in the long run, even at that rate, as opposed to a rapid spread. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Gold?
I just have one comment. I've been working with Kathy Bernhardt down at the Transit, Curry Transit, and they have 2 buses coming up. These are free buses to be given to some nonprofits. At first I reached out to Tony to see if the veterans wanted them. Are you listening, Beth? Okay, that's good. I'm reaching out to the schools to see if they want them, and if there's any other nonprofit that wants them. These are in good condition. They're handicap accessible. So, what was that? Oh, okay. That's good to know. So
All right.
I'll contact you if, okay, thanks. That's it.
All right, I have a couple of things. First of all, I was going to mention this while the library districts were here. I'm hoping that a lot of our public places will post signs in their windows, maybe on their desks, for the public to see, to get our census done properly. As many may or may not know, a lot of the dollars that we receive federally are based on the census, as well as elected offices, potentially a new congressional seat, redistricting of those areas. All of that is based on the census. So I would urge everyone in the county to please, especially in rural areas, because a lot of rural areas don't get funding. I know, like we did the Tested app earlier this year through NACO. The reason they wanted to do that is because rural areas aren't getting the proper signal for cell phones, and because of that Tested app and all the hits they got on it, that forces, the government is now going to force cell companies to properly identify those weak areas and boost the signals. So again, the census is an important part, and I would urge everyone to please commit to the census and fill it out, and you can do it online. It takes about 3 minutes. As commissioners, we all, I would like to say my relationship through NACO, we've kind of had something really neat happen here this week. All of the commissioners were notified from Secretary Bernhardt's office in Washington of a possible, well, it's not a possible, and it's executive order that President Trump signed to rebuild all the monuments that have been destroyed of American heroes during this time of unbelievable unrest in our nation. And he's also signed an executive order to, from Secretary Bernhardt to head a task force that will propose options for the creation of a national garden for American heroes, including potential sites for that. I was notified, as were both commissioners, Commissioner Boyce and Commissioner Gold, through their office on their comments on that. And I have since sent a letter to the Secretary, and I will read it into the record. Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you for considering Curry County for placement of the President's executive order on building and rebuilding the monuments of American heroes and the building of a national garden over those American heroes. Firstly, we would like to inform you that we have had no federal, state, or county property destroyed in our county by vandals. More than 50% of our citizens are over 50 years of age. Many are formerly military or come from a military background. Our county sheriff's department is extremely active, as our local police are, in making sure our Curry County residents are well served. After conversations with our board and many locals, we would be honored to host the National Guard of American Heroes. As you know, Curry County is about 100 miles long of pristine coastline, dotted with many county parks, as well as much federally owned land. We also have native tribal lands surrounding in the county, and add that to the historic value and nature to our county. Curry County is mostly rural, and that we have so many areas that while driving up Highway 101 from California or down from Washington and Northern Oregon, to pull off and take a break to visit our national honorarium, to visit this national honorarium, we will find it easily to identify the perfect place, whether it be directly on the cliffs overlooking the ocean or placed in a treed and flower garden protected by the hillsides. We would easily find placement of this treasured part of American history and the people who gave themselves and their families to make this a great nation. I go on to identify a few things in here, just of my own comments, and just to finish up the letter I just wrote. They asked us if we would identify individuals, and I said that to identify someone else would be a task that I would leave only to you. I personally would leave only to you. With so many giving so much, it is hard to single out just a few. A suggestion might be to offer a wall of recognized as Medal of Honor recipients. So that was just an idea I had for them, is to have a Medal of Honor wall, as well as the garden of American heroes. And from what I understand, and I'm not sure on this, but from what I understand, they're going to have a national vote on this. They're actually going to ask the American citizens. They're going to come up with, say, 100 names, or everyone gets to submit a list of names, and then the top 40 are going to be selected for this garden, but I'm not certain that that's how they're going to do that. Also, in further conversation, as many may have noticed in the paper the other day, our Congressman DeFazio has finally declared an emergency in Curry County on our river. He has asked for immediate funding to help to remove some of the sediment and gravel from the Rogue River, and also to look farther into the situations that they're having down in the Port of Brookings Harbor. I have commitments from the Corps that, because they cannot get the big dredge in here this year, it'll wait till spring, but they are committed to removing, dredging and removing the rock and sediment basically in the mouth of the river, and they are telling me they are going to be able to move that entire south side gravel mess on the south side of the river all the way to the bridge. That will be removed. We are also still, through Mr. Williams and some other people, looking to get Secretary Bernhardt here later this year and have him have an emergency document to further fund the Corps of Engineers and or a private company to clear the rock from the bridge forward to Elephant Rock, and whatever that would take. And again, I would rely on people that have been on this river for their life. The tourists, the jet boat people, all the fishing guides, the experts that have lived here their whole lives, to consult with them on that. Should that happen, we will reach out to those people and ask for a public meeting on that. So that's currently all I have.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Else is here.
Oh, thanks. We had a great day on the river Monday, and thanks for the reminder on, I'll be anxious to see what those dates are. I hope that there still might be a chance they can get in this year. One of the things that I was reminded of, I've never heard Steve Byerland mention this either, and I'm surprised because I know he knows about it. But a little slow that we went up just past the landing there, as you go straight up the river. We used to go, that used to be the channel, the first year I ran tour, about 1973. And nobody goes in there. There's no fish. And what we discovered, or at least we made note of, took several pictures. And I asked the guys in the boat, the engineers, and Cam Perry, how many cormorants are we counting here? And there was different estimates, but one was, the low range was, there must be 300. The high range was 500. The point is this. Cam Perry has done a study on that from River Dogs, and he reminded us, he says, they eat their weight every day in small salmon. And so we're just sitting there kind of with our jaws dropped and thinking, wow, this is a huge, huge thing. And so other places up and down the Oregon coast, they have done noise treatments to remove the cormorants. They try their best not to shoot them and bag them. But that is hurting our fish population. Not to mention the other issues. We don't need to go into today. We're aware of them, but that's obviously very important. So thank you for that reminder there, and good work on your medal. Good work on your Medal of Honor letter. I'm reasonably short today. It's no secret that this relates to Director of Courier Operations, Ms. Schmelzer. Yes, no secret to her. I disagree on what's best quite often for the citizens. But I want the public to know she's filed a Ethics Commission violation series against me with the Oregon Government Ethics Commission program. I have 30 days to respond. It's more of the same. It's more of the Schroeder harassment, the Schmelzer harassment, and I want to remind the public, then go back and review the April 22nd meeting of the commissioners, and they'll see that, by the way, she accused you, Commissioner Pash, and Mr. Colin, and I of having a secret meeting. She also said that Assessor Colin and I called you on a Sunday night, and of course that is absolutely felonious. So those charges are, again, more more of what Curry County has become the last few years. The gold lead lawsuits, all the above, and so, yeah. What are we going to do the next time he does that? Well, that's what I'm up against. We'll see. We know where Mr. Barnes stands, don't we? Mr. Barnes, I tried to get you to run for commissioner. What entertainment. So anyway, I'm going to be fighting this furiously, and I'm sorry it's come to this, but I didn't ask for this. I've always given Director Smelser the benefit of doubt, done my very best, along with former Curry County Administrator Schroeder. So can't do anything but battle this, despite the incredible time required. So I'll finish with this. Fire season. Here we are, the 5th of August, and so far the Rogue-Resiscu National Forest has lost 11 acres. And so I'm proud to report that this was when the Czech Copar fire was contained on, I think it was the 17th of October. And I'm pretty proud of this. Between those two guys, as you know, they've got about 65 years of firefighting experience, representing the Oregon Department of Forestry, the Coos Forest Protective Association. So they put that little picture on there. And let's see what we got. One more. And they give me a firefighting shirt. So they said I cannot come to any fires without proper attire, and that is bright as it can be. And it was just really a nice gesture that they did, and they're keeping in close contact every day. Every fire that we have, we've had 6 now so far, not just in Curry County, but the areas that we're quite sensitive to. And to only have 11 acres, actually only 1 acre in Curry County, by the way. So we're hoping to get through the next 60 days. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have.
All right, well, it is 22 the hour. I know we have an executive session, but Commissioner Gold has asked for some extra time to look through some of the information that we will be discussing in that executive session. So I would like to, at this time, we'll recess this meeting, and we will reconvene at 1 o'clock.
Can we make that 12:30?
I don't care.
1 o'clock works better for me if I have anything to...
1 o'clock works better for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We'll reconvene at 1.
Sorry, Commissioner.
No, that's okay.
Oh, you won't take more than about 5 minutes, all right? How about can we do 12:45?
Okay.
Compromise. That's cool.
12:45, we will reconvene directly into executive session, and we will come back to this meeting after we complete our executive session. This meeting is in recess.